I'm at one of the most important places in Israel during World War I. This is the Indian cemetery in Haifa that honors Indian soldiers who fell here during a very hard battle in 1918, the liberation of Haifa from Ottoman rule. Is there a message that you would like to deliver to both Israelis and Indians who are watching this?
A lot of Indian soldiers, some of whom were Jewish Indian soldiers, fought in Israel during the two world wars and sacrificed their lives.
Here in Israel?
Yes. And one of the battles they fought was the Battle of Haifa. They liberated Haifa on September 23, 1918.
These soldiers were mostly poor Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs from villages. But how could they ensure their loyalty? Why would these poor, semi and non-literate rural young men fight for a war that wasn't even there? Well, let's just say the Brits had their way. Here is an army recruitment ad from that time. The Urdu text reads, "Who will take this money, rifle and uniform?" Below this, there's a cupped pair of hands with a pile of coins. With the answer, "He who immediately enlists in the army." In a research paper about the Indian Army's role in the war, it stated that the British guaranteed every recruit a varied meal, regular wage and frequent home leaves. If wounded or killed in action, their families would receive the entire pension. But this alone wasn't the reason why these men became mercenaries.
Along with that, there were family traditions, community pressures of colonial masculinity, and a certain sense of that martial ism.
And the hope to win a medal in the army was a great motivation. And it really showed in the way they fought. Even though they were hastily put into action with very little preparation, these Indian soldiers fought bravely. But perhaps the most significant contribution of the Indian forces came in the Battle of Haifa in modern day Israel. Indian sepoys fought against the Ottoman Empire, Germany's allies, in defense of the British Empire. They were successful in defeating the Ottoman forces, and this upshot of an astonishing victory was actually the end of the Ottoman Empire. Even within their own ranks, they had tremendous hardship.
There were often pockets of intimacy between the Indian sepoys and the British officers. At the same time, they also subscribed to the overall racist imperial ideology. The senior-most Indian officer would always be junior to the youngest British officer.
According to the Economic Times, as the war drew to a close, the surviving sepoys, battered and war-hardened, hoped that they would be welcomed back as heroes. But even that did not happen. In 1919, the British were in no mood to hold up their end of the bargain with the Indian nationalists. Instead of self-governance, the British imposed the draconian Rowlatt Act, which gave the government extraordinary powers to quell sedition against the British Empire by detaining political activists without a trial and arresting any suspected individual without a warrant. Public dissent against this rule was ruthlessly suppressed. The worst incident was the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, where the army fired indiscriminately at a peaceful, unarmed crowd of hundreds of men, women and children. Their trust shattered by the British, the Indian nationalists felt that the country had nothing to thank these soldiers for. They had merely gone abroad to serve their foreign masters.
Some $45 trillion, that's what Britain looted from India between 1765 and 1938, and this is just an estimate. The actual figure could be much higher.